We're back. Yes, the Jump Show has returned after a hiatus of eating plenty of festive food and having lots and lots of Baileys. It's great to be back for the 2025 Cheltenham Festival Ante-Post series. One of many videos coming your way up until the Cheltenham Festival itself, 4 days in March. Please remember to like if you enjoy this video. We'd love to get 150 for the return of the Ante-Post series. And if you haven't already, do click that subscribe button. We'd love to get to 2,500 subscribers before the Cheltenham Festival. Alongside me as ever, it is Jake Price and Dan Overall. Jake, how are you? Happy New Year. Hope you had a good Christmas.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very good. Nice and recharged. Had a little bit of a break myself, so ready to get firing away now at these Cheltenham Festival Ante-Post bets.
Yeah, very much so. And Dan, I've been speaking to you a little bit over the Christmas period. I know you had a nice time and hopefully plenty of nice food and drink consumed. You're a bit of a connoisseur in that regard. So I imagine it was a lovely couple of weeks for you.
Is that a polite way of calling me fat? You're a connoisseur of nice food, Dan. Maybe a bit too much.
You're definitely a few stone lighter than me, mate, so you're fine.
Well, that's true enough. And I'm surprised you went with Baileys, to be fair. I imagined you'd be more of like a cognac cigar man, like after a long Christmas day, around that 6 p.m., 7 p.m. I can just imagine that you there, like log fire, nice brandy glass in hand, cigar the other hand, feet up. I mean, again, to me, you are about 65 years old. So I need you to live up to that stereotype. So none of this modern drink stuff, please, mate. Keep to type.
Yeah, you do realise you're going to be my age in about 2 years' time.
And that haunts me every single day I get up.
Right, we're going to start by looking at the Unibet Champion Hurdle picture because it changed a lot over the festive period. But first, before we do that, Jake, we have a competition for you, don't we?
We do indeed, yeah. Thanks to race sponsors Unibet, we are giving away 2 pairs of tickets for Trials Day at Cheltenham on Saturday, the 25th of January.
And in order to enter, please like the video, make sure you're subscribed to The Jump Show, and comment down below Cheltenham Countdown.
The 2 lucky winners will be selected at random and announced in next week's episode of The Jump Show.
Best of luck. Hopefully see you there. I know I'll be there. Just me and guest show host, as we were well known, Andrew Blair White, will be alongside me. I know a lot of people appreciated his presence on the last show, much to Tom's annoyance. So see us there, and hopefully you win, and we'll see you there, and best of luck.
Well, apparently the way forward for me to be more exciting on this show is to provide really cheap banter and cheap laughs. So I'm going to be doing that as much as I can.
2 weeks later, and it's still there, nibbling away. I love it.
Right, yeah, talking about the Champion Hurdle, Constitution Hill is back. It was a great performance in the Christmas Hurdle, beating Lossiemouth. I mean, I thought a slightly below par Lossiemouth. I think it was Ruby Walsh who said she was sort of 4 out of 5, I think, in terms of how he saw her well-being in that race. But the great thing was that Constitution Hill was back, and he looked, I don't think quite as good as ever, Dan, but he looked pretty good.
Well, no, I think it's hard to really top the efforts in the Supreme and the first Champion Hurdle. I mean, those were efforts which I think we'll always almost remember him for as being the absolute peak and hard to get to. And considering all the issues he's had, like, it's just good to see him back and winning. You say about Lossiemouth being below par, I just think it was the conditions that really took her out of her comfort zone. Like, after 2 hurdles, you could see she was really on the back foot. I mean, for as much as they probably wanted to hold her up, there's no way they wanted to almost be 3-4 lengths detached, and that's because she just couldn't go the early pace that Burdett Road set. She jumped the first 2 a bit big, and I think the writing was on the wall for a long way out. Constitution Hill was back to his unbelievably slick hurdling as we can. He's still the best jumper of a hurdler I can really remember. It's just the scope he has at them and how low he is always going to put rivals in a uncomfortable position because no horse can really match that. I'd say he did it well. It wasn't one of his vintage performances, but at Road ran a stormer from the front. He's clearly a horse who now is starting to harness that potential we saw in his juvenile days. But I think with front running tactics, we've seen him settle better. He's now starting to fulfill what he's basically achieved on the flat. He put up a career best. Constitution Hill was good. It wasn't the heights of what we've seen, but considering all the issues there's been and the well-documented travels he's had to be on to get to this stage, to see him back winning was a real good spectacle.
Yeah, it was. I think everyone would agree with that. It has opened the picture up in terms of the fact that the Champion Hurdle market is now very much skewed in his favour. And also, Jake, of course, you've got to remember that State Man has not really been himself. I mean, I know he ran quite well in his reappearance, but was absolutely smashed up by Brighter Days Ahead at Leopardstown last time out. Clearly wasn't his running, he wasn't A1, but you've got to be worried about his well-being this season, haven't you, after that performance? Because it's very unlike him.
Yeah, exactly. And it was back at Leopardstown where he's normally mustard, isn't he? Like that, he absolutely loves Leopardstown. So the fact he got beat by Winter Fog, I think, says everything you need to know about how he ran that day. But yeah, I mean, I've been very snippy about Brighter Days Ahead since she's left Novice Company. Obviously, I was a big fancy of her at Aintree, but since then I've kind of gone off the ball with her a bit. But she was, as good as she had to be. She absolutely smashed them up the park. So fair play to her. Obviously, the big question now is, you know, are her and Lossie Mouth going to end up in the mares? Are they going to go champion hurdle route? I think connections of Brighter Days Ahead, Jigginstown have come out and said very bullishly that they're going to be going for the mares hurdle still, no matter what the performances are. So look, fair enough that if you're an owner, then you're going to go for the race you've got the best chance of winning, and her odds are shorter in the mares hurdle, so she has the better chance of winning that race.
You got to think the Dublin Racing Festival is going to be very revelatory in terms of not just who wins, but who goes there. Because obviously you've got the three of them can all realistically turn up there. Would
Yeah.
Brighter Days Ahead skip that and go straight there? Will they almost let Lossiemouth take on State Man? Will one of them go to the international, like obviously Lossiemouth did last year, knowing Constitution Hill might go there? So there's a lot of pieces that are yet to fall into place, and I think that'll very much have a bearing on who turns up where in Cheltenham. So I don't think that picture's just settled just about yet.
Jake, come back to you on this, and I know this has been voiced a few times. Are we not very much in the realm of the fact that we need to get that Grade One mares hurdle changed in terms of its race conditions? Do we not think that any mare rated 150 plus should be rerouted and put in Grade One Open Company, and the mares hurdle should be a Grade Two for 150 horses and below? What do you make of that?
It's this age-old debate, isn't it, of whether we're better off doing that or not. I think when you've got the case of a mare like a Lossie Mile for a Brighter Days Ahead, obviously we want to see them take on everybody in the champion hurdle, don't we? But in terms of the breeding picture, to get these mares in the first place, I think this mares hurdle is the key to unlocking that. Kelly Alexandra is pretty much exclusively got mares, hasn't he? And he always buys his mares. He spent a lot of money on a mare, just this autumn gone. So I think it's one of those things where it's a catch-22. You can, take away from the champion hurdle, but then again, we also get some great Grade One mares hurdles as well, don't we? Like the last two renewals have been really good. So yeah, it's one of those. The debate will always roll on. You've got the people like Matt Chapman who are adamant one side. You've got the people like Kevin Blake adamant as well. But it's one of those things where we're going to always debate it. But I think realistically, the way it is now is fine enough for me because it's an exceptional circumstance, isn't it? When we see a mare like this, there's not a whole bunch that come along. It's not like we've got five mares that should be running the champion hurdle. There's two of them, and one of them might still run there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it would detract from the breeding side of things for mares and their value after they race if the mares hurdle was downgraded to a Grade Two. It would still be a Cheltenham Festival race. It would still be very important. And yes, as far as I'm concerned, I think that should happen eventually, but we'll see. Particularly when you've got a year like this when there's so many good mares. Right, moving on to the novice chase picture. Sergino was very impressive, wasn't he, on his chasing debut in the Wayward Lad at Kempton. He was speedier than Dan Overall is after he's had a couple of pints at Cheltenham and he's gone off to bed. Um, he was very, very good indeed. And one of the finest chasing debuts I've seen for a long time. Dan, what did you make of him? And I mean, you couldn't help but be impressed, could you really?
Yeah, obviously it was billed as one of the big clashes of the week, really, in terms of the Christmas period, and it never really was one. I mean, it was great to see them go almost neck to neck all for the first few fences, but you always got the impression that Ballyburn was just struggling to lay up with the pace that Gino had and his jumping. But I mean, my God, they put on some performance between them because obviously Rubo, who is a fair horse in his own right, I mean, a solid 150 hurdler who had his conditions in terms of good ground on a track he loves, could never go with either of them. So I think obviously Ballyburn has almost been dismissed by many. Some are saying, right, stay as hurdle it is straight away. But I mean, I think time will probably tell he ran into a horse and conditions that he was just never going to be able to live with. We've always said of Ballyburn that his pedigree is all 3 milers. He's kind of was a grinding 2.5 miler. The champion hurdle chat in the summer was nonsense. He was never going to be a champion hurdle horse. I guess the issue is for him, like it is for so many, that realistically you'd want to be going for 2.5 miles and his hands almost being forced if they are to go to a novice chase at the Cheltenham Festival for 3 miles. But so Gino, as you say, I think the figure of the time, and I think Timeform have rated it as one of the best chase debuts we've seen, up there with the likes of Sprinter Sacra. It was peerless. The race we saw today at Naas in terms of in the pocket and co. Il Atlantique, obviously threw his hat into the ring, but I think Sergino probably slept fairly peacefully at night tonight, knowing what's going on over there. He sets the standard. He's a short price, and rightly so.
Jake, I don't know if you remember sort of 2 years ago on this podcast when I put up Sergino as the horse to follow for the season. How's that worked out? It's worked out quite well, hasn't it?
How
But it
many
was last
times have you
season.
blown this trumpet?
Quite a few, quite a few.
We'll let it. We'll
I'm
let
gonna
it
keep
slide.
blowing
I
the
mean,
trumpet.
yeah, I mean, it
Yeah,
doesn't happen very
he's a very
often,
good
you know.
horse.
Got to let him
Yeah.
have his kicks when he can take them. So, what price did you get for the Arkle there, Bully?
Well, I don't think you win the. I don't think you win the Arkle actually.
Ooh,
Go on in, go on in. You
interesting.
can't say that and then not follow up. Go on.
No, no, no. That's a joke. I do think he'll win the Arkle.
Oh God,
Ah,
Although
soft. Oh, there you go.
saying that,
Rolled
actually,
over.
saying that, I did think Elat Lontique did it well today. We're recording on Sunday. I thought he did it well today, but I think the race did kind of sort of empty out a bit. I think actually we've got the two best 2 mile novice chasers at the moment. Lodi Sud as well. I think we're in a
Over
really,
Majborough.
yeah, I think we're in a really strong position at the moment. Majborough hasn't had enough experience for me yet, so he's only just won his novice chase, isn't he? So remains to be seen what he can do in Grey One company. But I mean, you'd expect him to be able to do it. But at the moment, Dan, I think we have the two best novice chasers in this country.
That's a big chat. I mean, Loda Sud, I think, has now almost been kicked to the curb. A lot of talk about him a couple of months ago. I think everyone was half expecting something to come out and be better. And I think it's just unfortunate that he's almost seen, well, definitely two in Sergino and Majborough, and then Atlantique, seemingly maybe more the finished article. Obviously, a horse who always promised a fair bit last season. Obviously, Hurdler didn't kick on from this stage last year. So that would always probably be in the back of your mind. But I think there's a fair argument to say that fences have just made him better. Time's made him better. He has the run style that always suits an Arkle, as we know. I mean, at the minute, you say bearing, you actually look at the market, say 8 to 1 probably each way isn't the worst bet in the world, but he obviously probably will go to the DRF if he runs into Manchester and gets beat out of sight. That probably skewers that one as well. So even though we've talked about the removal of the turners almost bringing these horses together and maybe having bigger fields, I think we actually could have a situation we have quite a small field Arkle again at this rate.
Yeah, I think that'll definitely be the case. Sergino's going to frighten a few off, I think, as well. Jake, just on that as well, who's impressed you apart from Sergino most, do you think, in the 2 mile ranks? Would it be Majborough and what he's done so far?
yeah, I mean, on debuts, it has to be Majborough because it was a very good performance. I think he's going to be going to the DRF for their 2 mile Grade 1 novice, the Arkle trial there. So that would be obviously a great place to see him. Hopefully, a couple of decent horses turn up there to take him on, and we'll see what he's really made of.
Yeah, we will. Absolutely. And Jake, come straight back to you. Cheltenham Gold Cup picture has changed. Not loads, but it has changed since the Christmas period. What with the Savills Chase in Ireland and first up the King George, won by Banbridge. I don't know if you agree with me, Jake, but I mean, I could never. I don't even think Banbridge will won in the Gold Cup. I can't see him staying an extra 2.5 furlongs at Cheltenham. Flat track is what he wants. The King George is a perfect setup for him. I know that he proved he could stay 3 there, but I think the Gold Cup would be a test too far. What do you reckon?
I think we're kind of judging him on distances too much, and realistically, we should be judging him on conditions because I think he just relishes good ground and decent ground. He's shown that multiple occasions now. Obviously, Kempton's a track that never gets too soft, and on Boxing Day it was quite quick, and I think that's probably what ended up being the undoing of Spillane Tower, who was a fancy for pretty much across the board on Twitter when I was looking at people who people were putting up for the King George. Everybody fancies Spillane Tower. And again, kind of like Lossiemouth, he just looked a little bit out on his feet. He never really looked comfortable. Mark Walsh never looked settled on him. And he just didn't have any horses to bridge that gap, did he, to the leaders, which didn't help him. Obviously, Ilie Francais was just spectacular again. I thought he had it one turning for home. Banbridge has done really well to claw him back and get up and win. I think, as I said, I think he's just a horse who loves good ground. And if it was good ground in a Gold Cup, you maybe would consider him. But on recent years, we've not had anything near good ground, have we, on Gold Cup days? So that would be something that would probably be against him.
Yeah, I think the conditions are a very fair point to make. Dan, Galopin Des Champs won again, of course, his beloved Leopardstown, beating Factor File. That was his bubble slightly burst in a way. Are you going to be with him at the moment for a third Gold Cup on the trot? Do you think he's the one to beat still?
Yeah, and I think the consensus was that he was even after the John Durkin. I did the On the Wire podcast with the likes of Gavin Lynch, Andrew, and Mark Boylan, and we were all unanimously Galopin Des Champs. But at the time, he was 2 to 1. In fact, the file was 8 to 11. Obviously, that flipped on its head on the day. I think everyone started to realise, oh yeah, this is Leopardstown and this is Galopin Des Champs. Yeah, I mean, until you beat him there, you're not the standout staying chaser. And Galopin Des Champs confirmed that he is on track to be one of the greats. If he can have another season like he did last year, I don't see how you can argue against it. Did this well. Obviously, we know he's kind of tactically versatile at this stage of his career. Obviously, he won a Gold Cup being almost held up. He can go forward as he did here. I think dictated the race really well. Obviously, he stacked him up going to 2 out and then powered clear really impressively. As you say, with Fact of File, it's almost like after one run, everyone's now saying, well, that's it, Ryanair, because obviously he was a bit too keen, probably didn't stay as thoroughly. But I mean, that's so negative, isn't it? Like, that's so boring. One defeat, and that's it. We've got to completely derail plans. I mean, realistically, now, we came into the season with almost thinking JP had three, four, maybe even five he could run in the Gold Cup. I mean, you're already down to two realistic contenders if you're going to put Splans Tower and Fact File in there. I'd still say you go to DRF there. Obviously, I think Willie Mullins mentioned after the race that he was quite keen in his bumpers. Obviously, still a horse very light on experience. He's almost got the keenness back into him after they put some headgear onto him, some more intense bits to get him to settle. That's almost kind of gone out the window now because they thought he relaxed. I think they're going to go back to that, try and view more tactics to get him to settle in his races. He's still a horse of immense potential, and Galopin de Champ has to keep this up. But it's not a given. He's a horse who has had a lot of battles. They can't keep doing it forever, so eventually it may well catch up to him. I wouldn't be giving up on Vattenfall completely, but I mean, Galopin de Champ, as we know, and I think we always thought would be the case, remains the one to beat in that division until he's beaten either Cheltenham or Leopardstown.
Yeah, I mean, it was a monstrous effort, wasn't it? And I thought his performance in the race last year was even better. I mean, he's a Leopardstown fiend, isn't he? Jake, Monty's Pass got beaten in the New Year's Day chase at Tremor by Embassy Gardens. Do you see any of those, either of those, making a fist of it in the Gold Cup, or do you think they need to improve markedly?
Monty's Pass is a bit of a throwback, isn't it?
Yeah, so he's
Where's
come
he
back.
from?
The 2003
God.
Grand National winner.
One of racing's great comebacks. This
They say they never come back.
came out from the dead. My lord.
You know what? That just bolsters Dan's earlier comment about how old I am.
Yeah, you're not helping yourself here, mate.
No, I know. Sorry, Monty Star.
That's better. Yeah, no, he was an interesting one. Obviously, he was quite a short price favourite for the Tremor New Year's Day race. Ended up being turned over, probably a bit disappointing. I mean, they thought the world of him going into the season. They thought he was a Gold Cup horse. I think now that tempers probably quite a bit of enthusiasm. Although you would have to say that if he's only starting on New Year's Day, there's a reason why he's only starting at that point. So, but he'll surely come on for the run. I was kind of having a look at his handicap mark there, and he's only rated 153 in Ireland now. He got dropped pound for that run. Could something like an Ultima not be out the question for him? Like, he's a
No,
very
that's
classy
completely out of the
horse.
question. Not a chance.
He's a very, very classy horse. Like, I could see him carrying that weight in quite a few big handicaps. But yeah, we'll have to see. They'll definitely go to the well again at the DRF, I'd imagine.
I still think he's a very fair each way option in the Gold Cup market. I mean, it takes a massive. It's going to take a slog and underperformances for him to win one. But you look
Yeah.
down that list, and he's now at 25 to 1, 33 to 1, what he was before. I mean, I backed him at 33s because I thought he's just one of those who will, if Galopin de Champ declines, if Fat de File fails to stay, he could pick up a real slog of a Gold Cup. And I don't think that really changed based on what happened at Tremor. He hated Tremor, way too tight. We know Henry de Bromhead. They said they're working back from the Gold Cup. Realistically, in my view, I think very little change based on that run at Tremor.
I also wonder if Embassy Gardens is going to win another race this season because he just
No.
tends to do this, doesn't he? I actually think he's kind of already overachieved this season by winning that race because I think that's to me definitely the best contest he lands this season. I think that's going to be a fair thing to say. The Ryanair for any of those horses we mentioned, Dan? Do you think the Ryanair is going to be a potential possibility for the likes of Banbridge particularly?
Well, I mean, potentially he was in the race last year, but the ground went soft and he never went a yard. It's going to be that dilemma like it always is on the run up to Cheltenham for a lot of these horses. I mean, Montestar never in a million years. He's not quick enough. Banbridge could go. Splans Tower could go, depending on how things.
Spillans Tower is the one I think who might go.
Yeah, but also at the same time, I think obviously I know JP will have the final say, but then if he goes, then Fat de File isn't going, and everyone seems to think Fat de File goes. So you've got a lot of various elements here. I mean, the Ryanair, as we know, and as I will touch on later, is a poison chalice when it comes to Ante-Post betting. It's a Venus flytrap, effectively. Like you think you're going to find one in there that looks so tempting because everything else isn't going to run, and then it just goes and bites your hand off every year because then a few things turn up out of the blue. Realistically, I think it would be very disappointing if Fat de File went to a Ryanair already. Splans Tower, likewise. It's a Gold Cup. It has far more prestige than a Ryanair.
It certainly does. And JP is going to want to throw the buckets at the Gold Cup. That's pretty much all of Christmas done. One other performance to note, though, from each of us. Jake Price, going to go to you first.
Yeah, I'm gonna not go from too far at all. Gonna go to today at the Lawyers of Naas. Obviously, it'd be the weekend just gone for you guys listening, but I thought that it was a very good performance from the winner, the Yellow Clay. Just to talk through the race, obviously it didn't look that great on decks compared to previous years. Obviously, Jasmine DeVoe, the champion bumper winner, was in there, top of the market. He just doesn't like jumping really, does he? That's what we've learned. Yet again, his jumping has fallen apart. He really checked out quickly, leaving the back. I think it's a bit back to the drawing board with him. I couldn't really have him on my mind for any Cheltenham Festival race at this point. But the Yellow Clay, like I thought he was absolutely mustard. He made rapid inroads, leaving the back, turning for home to track down the leaders. Took them up at the top of the home straight and went on to score by 8 lengths really comfortably. I think it was a bit of a staying fashion. I would have to say. Obviously, the ground went heavy as soon as the race finished. But yeah, that is the big dilemma now, is where he's going to end up. Gordon Elliott, straight after the race, said that the middle distance race would be for him, which is interesting because it is one of these years where there's no real standout. Obviously, the New Lion is the standout of any novice in any of the markets at the festival. He's now been trimmed into, I think, 5-2 best price, which it's fair, considering the visual performance that he had in the Challow Hurdle. I think my problem with him is just that the reason he's so short is just because we've had such a lack of standout performances so far over the whole of the season in the novice division. I think if there was a normal year, we would have had a few Irish horses in and around him by now. Obviously, the Yellow Clay has now jumped to 7-1 behind him, which is fair. But I think the Albert Bartlett would be the race that I would prefer to see him in. He was, put it straight in as 5-1 favourite for that. He's drifted out to 8-1 in a few places now, following Gordon's comments. But I think the Yellow Clay is a very good horse, and even if he does run in the Turners Novice Hurdle, as it's now called, I think he would still have a decent chance as being the standout Irish horse so far.
I think that, yeah. I mean, I thought I was very impressed actually what I saw today. I thought he did it really well, and he's got bags of stamina, but I also think he's got plenty of speed.
He does, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd be pretty confident about his chance actually going to Cheltenham. I think he's also clearly a really hardy type. Like he can take his racing really well, and it was a bit of a test today, wasn't it, in the conditions? But he handled it really well. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, can see where you're coming from, Jake. Even though I was supposed to be controversial and disagreeing.
Well, you
Um,
were very snippy about him when he crossed the line the last day.
Yeah.
I was, wasn't it? I was. I think I called him.
Tail between legs straight away.
Didn't
Yeah.
I say he was stinky? I think I said he was
You said he
stinky.
was stinky, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Mm.
really what a mature thing to
A
say.
professional insult as well. Yeah. A really analytical approach.
Well, actually, I'd like to say he's become a lot less poggy since today's race. So,
Good to
well,
hear.
yeah, well done to the Yellow Clay. Go on, Dan. You got a couple you want to put forward, haven't you?
Yeah, a bit of the lesser trodden path, and we're going to go full circle with the first one because the horse I mentioned first on this series last year, and he's back, Lark in the Morning, who ran in the 2 mile handicap hurdle at Leopardstown over Christmas. You couldn't really see much because it was that day where, I mean, it was a struggle. Thank God for the red cap, otherwise I never would have known he was in the race. But he was buried on the inside in rear, never competitive, stayed on pretty nicely. I think that should put him spot on for another handicap, probably the 2 mile handicap at the DRF. Still in 130. 4-year-old form is obviously stacking up very well. No reason why he can't win another big handicap. And then also at Leopardstown, Cowabunga, who was second to Cobbeck de Board in the 2 mile maiden. Another race no one could see really anything. But again, thankfully, slightly distinctive colours. We saw him make really good progress to challenge Cobbeck de Board. Never really getting there, but this was a promising run, I thought, on his Irish debut. Obviously, Cobbeck de Board is being touted as the big novice hurdle hope, really, for the Willie Mullins Yard. And he'll need to brush up his jumping. It's not quite Jasmine DeVoe level of bad, but it wasn't pretty anyway, so he'll have to brush it up at the DRF. But Cowabunga ran on really well. I mean, if you look back to his form in France as well, his run behind 2 smart types there reads really well. Shapes like a stayer. That was his second run over hurdles. They get 2 more runs into him. I would say he's pretty much top of the early Martin Pipe contenders list for me.
Are you starting to think that Lark in the Morning is sort of another Langadang type, like a Mark II of Langadang, in terms of the fact that,
Ah,
do you know what
I
I
know what you
mean?
mean. I
Yeah.
know what you mean. I guess it's early days, but I just think he'll pop up in another handicap. I mean, he was off a very light mark in the Fred Winter. I mean, they went to the Swinton where the race was a bit of a mess, and then obviously just reappeared here and was literally never really in the race. He went off joint favourite for it, which was a bit weird, but I'd say he's got one more big handicap in him before. He's going to be always be one of those horses who's just there or thereabouts because he's a flat horse going into hurdling. Maybe they step up in trip later on, but like I'd be surprised if he ever goes over fences. So they're going to have to pick and choose their targets.
Okay, I'm going to put one forward from the Christmas period, which I thought was eye-catching, and it doesn't really describe me very well, this horse. Good and Clever, who is Warren Greatrex, horse, who finished third in the Formby at Aintree and actually ran pretty well. He stayed on well from the back of the last. It was obviously quite hard to see with the fog reducing visibility, but he did run well. He wasn't too far off Miami Magic and the winner Potter's Charm, both of whom I think are very smart novices. And he was picking up the pieces and making late headway. So that was a pretty encouraging performance. He hasn't actually won over hurdles yet, so they might try and pick up a nice, easy maiden hurdle in the near future, the Greatrex team. Let's not forget he was second behind Regent Stroll, beaten a fair way, but that was on the back of a long, long break, 230 days off, and that was a pretty encouraging first effort over hurdles. Then he ran in the Formby over Christmas. He's got that really good bumper form, finished third at Aintree in the Grade 2 there. And I think we're starting to get to see what he's capable of. The thing that really intrigues me about him is that he's on a mark of 134. And I can see him, if they want to go that route in the Betfair Hurdle, having a big shout in that, or indeed a similar handicap of that nature, where he's got some nice cover. There's lots of runners, and he can snake his way through the field. I think that handicap mark is quite lenient on him. I think he'll turn out to be better than that, and he's still pretty lightly raced. Only had this couple of starts over hurdles so far, one of which was finishing third in a Grade 1. So. What I've seen so far over Christmas and beyond, and before that, Good and Clever looks like a handicap snip in waiting. I think he could easily land a big prize at some stage.
Fully putting up a Warren Greatrex horse. We're so back. The series is so back. My
I
lord,
was just
I'm just
I was just
surprised he
waiting
isn't
for
going
that.
up for the Turners. Oh yeah, this is music to my ears. I mean, the issue with the handicap mark is he can't really run in any handicaps that are worth winning because he only had two starts.
Well,
So
that's the
obviously you
thing.
need
So that's what I'm saying. He needs a maiden hurdle win of some nondescript nature, and then
grade ones it is. Okay. Yeah. I'll see him in the winless ones to watch column next year.
right, lads. Let's move on, shall we, to what you've all been waiting for, the first Ante-Post Cheltenham Festival selection of our series. Jake, going to come to you first. What are you going to go for this week?
Yeah, so obviously it was good to have a quick scan through all the markets, but it is looking quite tricky out there. So it's going to be interesting to see where we all land over the next couple of weeks. But I'm going to be going to the Brown Advisory Novices Chase, and I'm actually going to back a horse here who was beaten over Christmas, but I think that there's plenty of upside and plenty of reason to suspect that he will do better next time, and that's Better Days Ahead, who's obviously very nicely named considering that argument. Obviously, last season he was a very good novice hurdler. He was laid out for the Martin Pipe, which he won off a mark of 140. And obviously, if you remember that day at Cheltenham, it was heavy ground. It was very testing, and he absolutely loved it. He stormed up the hill, beating some really nice horses. You know, Waterford Whispers, Quai de Bourbon, Answer to Cave. I think they're all seemingly having their little private battle, trying to be laid out for the new novice handicap as well. So they're all good horses. I'm sure they'll be winning races going forward. But Better Days Ahead actually went to the 3 mile Grade 1 novice hurdle after that at the Punchestown Festival in May. And I think he'd kind of just got a bit lost on the ground. It was a bit too quick for him. It was good yielding places that day. Finished third behind Dancing City and High Class Heroine. I'll touch on it again in a bit, but I think he just kind of stayed on when the race was already done. Since going chasing though, he's really lived up to his reputation. Gordon Elliott said he scored really well at home. He went and made his debut at Navan over 2.5 and beat Slade Steele, who obviously was the supreme winner. Now, admittedly, Slade Steele hasn't shaped as much or taken to fences as much as you would have expected him to, but still, it was a good way to win your beginners. And despite only winning a beginners, he was then sent off 10 to 11 favourite for the 3 mile Grade 1 novice chase at Leopardstown on Boxing Day that I've just mentioned. It was a bit of a funny race. There was only 4 runners in there. All 3 of the market principals were trained by Gordon Elliott, so it's kind of like that race at Punchestown a few weeks prior. Croke Park again was allowed to dominate from the front, like he did in the Grade 1 Drimmoor novice chase the time before that as well. He made all that day, he made all this day, and he really did dominate from the front. But Better Days Ahead, tracked well in behind on ground that was, the exact same description as it was at the Punchestown Festival, where I thought it was too quick for him. Obviously, it probably a little bit softer considering it's December, not May, but the point still stands. He didn't get going quick enough to get past Croke Park, who was dominating in front, and he was able to hold him off right until the closing stage of the race, where Better Days Ahead then absolutely flew home. and he was only denied a head. He actually got up in the next stride as well. So I think if the ground was on the softer side, I can only see that margin of defeat growing into victory and a bigger victory at that. The softer it got. I also think that if he was given a stiffer test, it will help him as well. And obviously, the Cheltenham Hill is something that he's already proven to love. I think the Cheltenham Hill and some softer ground would be, the absolute ideal conditions to not only reverse that Croke Park form, but to go on and be a real contender in this Grade One race. Considering he was punted into 10 to 11 favourite that day for as I said, on his second start over fences, I think that the 16 to 1 available for better days ahead for the Brown Advisory, which is the same price that he was before the race as well, I think is quite big. He didn't really do a lot wrong. Obviously, you'd rather he went and beat Croke Park nicely, but then we wouldn't be getting the price that we are now. Looking through the market, I think he's Gordon Elliott's number one for the race. I think he'll either go to the Naas 3 mile Grade 3 Novice Chase on the 26th of January, or the Navan Grade 2 10 up Novice Chase on the 9th of February next. Potentially looking to avoid, the likes of Dancing City if he was going to turn up in one of them. But if you do look through the market, not only could he shorten if he won one of those races, I think that it is quite windy. There's quite a few horses in here. Their participation is far from confirmed. You've got Ballyburn, Imperial Pass, El Atlantique is in the market, Majboro's in the market, Django Bai's in the market. Like at least 3 of those aren't going to run, probably even more than that. So I think there's plenty of reason to suggest that 16 to 1 is a big price that will shorten, and hopefully he'll go and win his next race and look like a proper contender.
Better days ahead for Jake Price. Great argument made. Jake, we're starting to get Moran fever, aren't you? Yellow clay and now better days ahead. You want the red,
Yeah,
green,
I
and
think you
white
should
fields
consult a
coming
doctor
there.
about that one.
We're all aboard. Nah, come on, they got it. Their form has got to turn around at some point.
It's Moran madness from Jake Price. Great stuff, Jake. Okay, Dan, what about your first selection of the season?
Well, good to see your New Year's resolution of giving out about our arguments and trying to come back at us is going well.
What
I
am
mean,
I
you must have
supposed
got an
what am
all.
I supposed to do when Jake says like 5 minutes of lucidity? I mean, I can't come and then say, "Oh, that was
Just say
right."
he couldn't beat Croke Park. Croke Park's terrible. Game over. Just like even if you don't mean it, just
Croke
say
Park
it.
is a
Like
Grade 1
I
winner.
believe in it. Yeah, and that's a horrible sentence to say out loud. It's a sad state of affairs. No, look, it's. I think as Jake mentioned earlier, this is tricky. I think it's trickier than last year. It seems to be the same way every year. And I have flip-flopped a few times on the first selection. And I mentioned earlier how the Ryanair is like the Venus flytrap of the Ante-Post selection game. Guess whose hand's caught in it again? This guy's. But you just look at the market, and my word, it's an absolute mess again. I mean, Fat the File is now 6 to 4 favourite, non-run no bet. 5 to 1 everywhere else. I mean, it would be a real disgrace if he run. If he runs, he's got a great chance, but I mean, it's a mess if he does. Banbridge next needs it good, but I don't think necessarily loves Cheltenham as much. I know he won a Martin Pipe. Gaelic Warrior, no chance surely. El Fabiolo's not going to be seen potentially until even after DRF. An Ergamine, Champion Chase. Eli Francais, I'm not sure he'd love Cheltenham. I mean, he could run anywhere, seemingly. He's a bit of an enigma, really. I wouldn't trust a horse who bleeds every other run either. John Bond, not a chance. Bland's Tower, maybe. Elete Tomp, setback, hates Cheltenham. Grey Dawning, Gold Cup. These are all the ones at the head of the market. So every single horse, I think you can have some sort of question mark whether they're going to turn up. And the one horse I got down to, who I think, again, participation isn't certain, but I don't think there's any other race for him that would suit him more. And despite his age, he's never had this kind of test, and I think he would love it. Is Jungle Boogie at 25 to 1. Now, yes, he's 11, but my God, you'll never see a more lightly raced 11-year-old. Like, always been prodigiously talented, as we know. He's had plenty of issues when he was with Willie Mullins, only having 3 starts, winning them all. But actually, since joining Henry de Bromhead, he's seemingly become teak tough. He had 4 runs in a year, which was almost unprecedented. Like I say, he's more than doubled his amount of career starts in just 12 months, and that's pretty remarkable when you consider just how fragile he seemingly was. So he ran behind El Fabiolo over 2 miles on his first run for the yard. Nice little prep run. Then went to Tremor for the New Year's Day chase, which he won, beating Classic Getaway, giving him plenty of weight in really deep ground. And I do like the fact he handles heavy. He clearly handles sounder surfaces as well. It's just belies kind of anything that throws his way. And I don't think he liked Tremor either. This is a big kind of galloping horse who would want more of a galloping track, I believe. Then went to the Gold Cup. And I would urge you to watch that race back and just keep an eye on him because he was kind of buried towards the rear there. I think they were very much conscious of his stamina, but he travelled really well into that race. I think even coming to 3 out, he was probably just catching on to the leading group and he pecked really badly. That lost him plenty of momentum, but he picked back up again. Coming down the hill to 2 out, he actually managed to make plenty of ground. He was only about 2 or 3 lengths jumping the second last. Just didn't stay the extended 3 mile two. No disgrace in that. Shaped far better than the Bear result. Almost a la Protectorat 12 months prior, but obviously he ran similar race in the Gold Cup before going on to win the Ryanair. I thought that was a really good effort in defeat and no disgrace whatsoever given his inexperience as well. And we saw him at Ascot just before the Christmas period. It was the last meeting we previewed here. I know the race maybe fell apart somewhat of Hiroko falling early and beating Phil Dorr and James de Burley wouldn't exactly be upper echelon form, but I'd say they're solid enough benchmarks. And despite giving away ground at basically every fence going out to his left quite drastically, he's absolutely bolted up here. Like, it was really impressive. Went from the front, say, bar jumping left, clearly going left hand is going to suit him better in the future. And what I did really like about that was he quickened away again at the end. Like, he could have easily just kind of tied, only been beaten 2 lengths. He's going away again at the line and to win quite comfortably by 8 lengths. I think Robbie Powell said after the race that the Ascot Chase is a possibility, obviously going back that way, but he did acknowledge, and I don't think you'd fail to notice it, that this is clearly a horse is going to be better going left-handed. So the Ryanair was also flagged as another possibility. I'd have no issue with him going there fresh. In fact, I think that would be a benefit to him. We know Henry de Brummond will get a horse ready fresh, and given his fragility, and I'd say the lack of options for him, I think going there fresh would almost be the ideal solution, really, given a race may cut up and his forward-going run style over this kind of trip, I think is ideal. Obviously, the age will put a lot of people off, but you look at the front three last year, they were 9, 10 and 10. The front two in 2023 were both 9-year-olds. He's the lightest rate 11-year-old you'll probably see in training, and I just think this is the perfect race for him. I can't see anything else that suits him better. Clearly a horse with a lot of ability. If it cuts up, as it probably will, I think there's every chance he'll be drastically shorter than 25-1. And Henry de Brummond's record in the Ryanair, I think he's had 11 runners, 2 have won, and he's had 3 more placed. So I think, considering the way the market is lined up, I think there's plenty of reason to think 25-1 about him is a fair enough price.
I know, see, annoying.
Go on.
No, I know. Annoyingly, I had this thing ready and waiting to go about how he's an 11-year-old, and you just got it at the end of it. I know you're a stats man, so you had to put it in there.
Yeah.
Fair play. No, fair play. That was my big gripe, and you've gone and said it and taken the wind straight out of my sails. So well done.
It's what I do best. I give you that crumb of hope and just crush it right before your eyes. And look, it's going to be a concern, and like not many 11-year-olds win at Cheltenham, but also not many 11-year-olds have only had 5 starts over fences and 8 career starts effectively. Like, it's just, he's a bit of an enigma there, and I don't think you looked at that Ascot run and thought this is a horse on the decline. I'd say that was up there with one of his best performances, despite almost everything going against him, really. Like, it's just a race. I think you have to have a little dart at something at a price. Fact of File turns up, it'll be a short price, but if those ones towards the top don't, then this is a pretty open race.
Well, I always think with this race as well that half the battle is trying to find a horse who runs in it, and Jungle Boogie almost, I would say, almost certainly will. Like that.
Well, he can't run. He can't run in the Gold Cup. He doesn't stay. Yeah. He shouldn't go right-handed. So that rules out Ferrias Punchestown. I don't know why you'd really go to the Ascot Chase. I mean, he'd turn up against track specialists there. I mean, I think he could probably win it, but I mean, he'd have to be a big effort given the way he's jumped. It's just perfect for him. There is no other race for him. I guess the only fly in the ointment is the Yard have Envoy, but I mean, is he the force of old? Probably not. And they've also got Hartwood, who I did look at, who maybe's a horse for this race, but he ran all right in the Savills over Christmas, probably tiring as well. So those are all considerations, but I just thought this was the race for him, and this time is running out.
Yeah, well, look, fair enough. And you otherwise made a tremendously good argument.
Annoyingly for you.
Annoyingly for me, yeah. Right, now I'm going to put on a very bad argument for my selection this week. And actually, it's a horse that I've been mentioning to the boys for quite some time. And I think I said it when he ran in his Chase debut back in beginning of December, that Olympic Man would win the National Hunt Chase, the new and improved, perhaps, National Hunt Chase at the Cheltenham Festival, which is now called a handicap. And I said to Jake at the time, I was like, "Can I say this on the podcast?" And Jake was like, "Wait for the Ante-Post series." So here we are, and I'm putting up Olympic Man for the National Hunt Chase, and he's a horse who I think has got the perfect profile for it. I was looking at the race conditions earlier, courtesy of Jake, and in it, to qualify, you have to have run 3 times and finished in the first 4 places over a distance of at least 2 miles, 7.5 furlongs. And to my utmost delight, the chasing debut of Olympic Man at Punchestown last time. He finished fourth over 2 miles, 7.5 furlongs. So he is already qualified, provided he gets those 2 extra runs in over fences. Now, I can see a world, absolutely see a world. Let's just have a quick conversation about the fact he's rated 137 over hurdles. Now, if they try and get something similar, the new race at over fences, that is, the new race at National Hunt Chase at Cheltenham's a 0 to 145. So you'd expect Olympic Man to be no higher than 137, particularly if what I think is going to happen in his next couple of starts over fences, Willie Mullins is probably going to put him into maybe next time another novice chase this month, where he might potter around behind a good horse and finish second or third, and then perhaps run him in the DRF 3 miler and finish fourth or fifth. Something along those lines where he runs okay, but doesn't go up in the handicap. And if we can get a mark of, say, 137 over fences, I think that'll leave him really nicely handicapped. Now, here's why I think that. His chase debut, I thought, was full of encouragement behind Dancing City. He eventually finished nearly 6 lengths behind him, behind Shannon Royal, who, of course, has since gone out and franked that form as well. And back in third was Mossy Fen Park. So it's a pretty strong front three there. Olympic Man was fourth, but he jumped appallingly. He jumped really, really badly. And it wasn't until the home straight where he started to kind of work things out. He made a mistake 2 out, but he jumped the last well and he jumped the third last well too. So he seemed to be learning on the job. And I think if he hadn't made those mistakes, he would have been bang there or thereabouts at the finish and possibly putting up to Dancing City because he was coming around the home bend going really strongly. Just made that mistake 2 out. And I think after the other mistakes, it rather flattened him. I therefore think that actually it's worked out Willie Mullins' favour because it then means he can target this race. I think the distance is going to be exactly what he wants. And if they can try and keep his handicap mark to around about 135, around about that mark, I think he'd be well treated. His hurdles form stacks up pretty well. Again, I thought he improved as he had experience over hurdles. He won by 15 lengths, getting off the mark earlier this year in March, Naas, and then ran a really good race in the Ferry House handicap to finish second, but he was far too keen that day. And what I liked at Punchestown over fences last time, after that break, he wasn't really that keen, and I thought he might be, given the fact he was coming from such a long layoff and the fact that over hurdles he had a tendency to be fresh. But I actually thought he settled pretty well. It was just the jumping that needed a bit of a improvement. That will come with time, hopefully. He's very versatile in terms of ground, and I do think that these race conditions for this new National Hunt Chase is just perfect for them if they can keep that handicap mark to around about 135, which I think they will do. As far as opposition's concerned, you look at the market, at the moment, Haiti Couleur is favourite. Now, I haven't got anything against Rebecca Curtis. She's a former Cheltenham Festival winner. She's a former Stayers Hurdle winner. In the last couple of years, she's been in the doldrums a bit. I think that if she's got a Cheltenham Festival favourite at the moment, which she does in Haiti Couleur, it's a race that you can look elsewhere for something to take it on. And for all that Haiti Couleur has been impressive when he's done this so far this season, I think it's right for a well-handicapped chaser to go and take advantage. You look further down the list, you've got High Class Heroes beaten on his chasing debut last time. You've got the likes of Transmission in there, although he might be on a decent enough handicap mark. I think it's just open to a very well-treated horse, and I think that could come in the shape of Olympic Man, who we are yet to see the best of. I absolutely guarantee that. And I thought there was so much encouragement to be gleaned in that opening start at Punchestown. So, in summary, I think we're looking at a well-handicapped horse. If they can play the game, which I'm sure they will do, and get those 2 more starts over fences and not perhaps win, but perhaps run well in better races, that will leave him nicely treated for this National Hunt Chase. So he's my pick in a very roundabout long way for the National Hunt Chase. Not as lucid as Jake or Dan, but I have my own reasoning. So fingers
The
crossed.
one thing you want to see above all else next time is a clean round of jumping.
Yeah.
That would be a golden star for him because my word, this horse has the ability of a 150 horse, but over hurdles, it was he went off like 6-4 for a handicap. I think it was at Punchestown, and generally cantered into the race, hit every single hurdle, and he got beat half a length. It was like if this horse could jump, he'd be very good. And to be fair, I think there were signs that he was getting it over fences, bar that obviously catastrophic error. So I think hopefully a couple more runs, maybe even over shorter, 2.5, almost get him jumping at speed, get him to respect his fences. I think he's definitely got potential.
And I think there's absolutely no kind of it's no bad thing to think that he will improve his jumping because he's only had the one start. I don't think he needs to concentrate more, and that could easily come. And with more experience, hopefully it will happen. I think 14 to 1 for the National Hunt Chase is a fine price, I have to say, each way. I think he's got In my eyes, he's got standout credentials if they can get there and his jumping improves. And I don't think they're that big ifs because I think with experience, his fencing will get better. But you make a very valid point, as you always do, Dan. Well, actually, no, as you sometimes do.
No, look at that. Oh, my heart. I'm scolded. Oh, bloody hell, put those daggers away, Bull. I'm not going to be able to survive some more of those. Also, on this, while we're on handicaps, because you've gone even earlier than I do, can we please, this is a plea to all the bookies who haven't done it yet, please start pricing them up. It's no fun when you don't. There's only a few priced them up yet. Come on. It's time we start having a bit of fun.
I put out a tweet pleading that earlier, so hopefully they'll.
Oh, good man.
Yeah.
This is begging.
Yeah.
Please help us, despicable losers, be a bit more, even bigger losers, I beg.
But, you are the handicap men. I mean, you are the men of handicap. As in, like, you will.
We are handicapped.
Thanks, Tom.
No, I told you to put those daggers away.
Yeah, definitely didn't mean that. That would have been going too far. Okay, lads, that was great fun. Really enjoyed it as always, and great to be back with the Ante-Post series. It's always fun, isn't it, when we tally up our selections towards the end and see how we do at Cheltenham. Well, it's fun for you.
Sometimes fun.
Not so fun for me a lot of the time.
It can be fun or very depressing. One or the other.
Yeah, it's fun for everyone watching, hopefully. Right, that brings us to the end of the first series, and this first episode in the series of this Ante-Post Cheltenham Festival season. Please remember to like and subscribe. We'd love to get to that 150 mark and likes for the return of the series. And if you haven't already, do remember to click that subscribe button. And remember to enter the competition, which we talked about at the top of the show. In order to enter, like this video, subscribe to us on The Jump Show, and comment down below Cheltenham Countdown if you want to enter that fabulous competition. Right, that brings us to an end of this first episode. We'll see you next time for more Ante-Post Cheltenham chat. But from me, from Jake and Dan, and from The Jump Show, it's goodbye.